It was very late at night, but while others are having a good dream, Ji-hoon is having a hard time sleeping because the guy in the room next to him is on a mission to siege the Wall of China. This all began after he finished his master degree and got a part-time job as a university lecturer, but his pay wasn't enough for him to afford rent near the university, so he picked this micro-sized room instead. At first he thought things will be fine, but it was not. Every night he either hears people yapping or clapping non-stop. Ji-hoon flips out and shouts, "Be quiet." The couple clapping next door hears Ji-hoon, but the guy figures he's only complaining because he's jealous. The next morning, Ji-hoon went out to look for a new apartment. As he opens the door to the apartment, he suddenly collides with a pretty girl packing ultra-huge calcium cannons coming out. Ji-hoon makes way for her and soon meets with the landlord. She shows Ji-hoon the room, but it was still too expensive, so he asks if there's a cheaper room. But even at the cheapest room, Ji-hoon wasn't able to afford it. Even the landlord couldn't believe how broke this dude is. Ji-hoon wonders if he should just give up on moving. Suddenly, he receives a phone call from his friend, inviting him out for a drink. In Woo-seo is Ji-hoon's best friend since childhood, who escaped the Matrix. Watching him makes Ji-hoon wonders if he should have given up on studying and started working sooner. Ji-hoon questions if Woo-seo is looking for a roommate, but he replies that he can't have one because he only let women into his apartment. Suddenly, Woo-seo notices a very pretty girl behind Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon looks back, and there was a beautiful blondie loaded with calcium bazookas. She gave Ji-hoon a smile, so he quickly turned back. Woo-seo asks why the hell was he staring at her like a weirdo, so he replies that it's not like they are going to go talk to her anyways, so it's fine. Woo-seo slams the table and starts walking towards the blondie. Ji-hoon thinks his friend is a dumbass for trying to invite girls who's clearly out of their league over. Seo is here to prove the haters wrong with his riz and aura. Ji-hoon was surprised that it worked. The blonde girl comes over and asks if she could sit next to Ji-hoon. He moves for her and introduce themselves to each other. Then the fun starts. After a while of drinking and chatting, all of them got drunk. Ji-hoon wonders why Woo-seo is taking so long to get ice cream. Ju-hee replies that she thinks they are not going to come back anymore. Our boy starts panicking right away because Woo-seo was supposed to pay for all this. Then the waitress comes over and informs them that they are closing. Ji-hoon tries calling Woo-seo, but there was no response. He soon noticed that Ju-hee was already at the payment counter, so he quickly walks over and said he will be paying. But once he heard that it's $350, his heart dropped to the floor, so she ends up paying. On their way home, Ji-hoon apologizes, so Ju-hee tells him that it's fine and he can pay for the next round instead. But Ji-hoon was already at his drinking limit, so she asked if he wants to come to her place instead. At this rate, only an idiot would refuse, and Ji-hoon was almost that idiot because he feels like things are going too smoothly for him. A night with a girl like this is just insane for a mid-boy like him. He can almost see himself waking up the next day, chained and forced to work as a slave, or end up being fed to the dogs while his organs were extracted for the black market. Eventually, he went with the flow and chooses to blame his moisture missile if things go wrong. Once they got to Ju-hee's place, she didn't wait long before she starts soaking Ji-hoon. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon is still worried and now wonders if she's a gold digger. Bro don't even got gold for her to dig. He eventually calms down and prays for the best, and once Ju-hee learned what kind of damage Ji-hoon's heat-seeking missile can do to her, it was impossible to stop, and the rest is history. Next morning, Ji-hoon wakes up relieved that his organs are still with him. It was still hard for him to believe that this was a girl he just slept with. He gets up to go to the bathroom when suddenly the door opened by itself, and it was a girl telling Ju-hee that it's breakfast time. Both of them were shocked to see each other because this was the girl Ji-hoon first met when he was checking out the apartment. Bitna got pissed and reminds Ju-hee that she will evict her if she brings a guy home one more time. Ju-hee quickly gets up and tells her that this guy is actually her cousin. She then tells Ji-hoon to say hello to her share-housekeeper Bitna. Ji-hoon did as he was told, but Bitna didn't believe them, so Ju-hee explained what happened and said she has the right to be suspicious because Ji-hoon has the habit of stripping when he's drunk. Bitna reminds her again that she can't let a man sleep in woman's room because there are other women on this floor, and there is also chance that a drunk man will snoop around the rooms. Ju-hee smiles as she apologizes and explained that she was just too drunk to think and asks Bitna for another chance. Bitna agrees but warns her to not do it again. Ju-hee laughs it off and asks if Ji-hoon can have breakfast with them, to which she agrees. At the dining table, takes a seat and thanked them for having him. He observes around and learns what an all-girls share house feels like, and figures it might be a good idea since it's affordable, but soon figures that men-only share house would just be like an army camp. He soon noticed the Myung-ji, who's sitting across him smiling at him, and of course he had a hard time focusing on her face, so he turned away. Bitna reminds Myung-ji to wear clothes next time, but her defense was she didn't know there would be a man joining them. Myung-ji asked if Ji-hoon's actually Joo-hee's cousin and accused him of lying because they look nothing alike. Joo-hee quickly comes and reassured her, so she eventually believes and out of nowhere said she's heard that cousins get married and make babies in other countries, so she wonders if that was what they were doing last night. Ji-hoon instantly spits out the food right into Bitna's face, while Myung-ji got even wilder and asked what he thinks about having her as his cousin too, while rubbing Ji-hoon's ankle with her feet. Ji-hoon quickly asked what she meant, so Myung-ji laughs and said she was just messing with him, but Bitna wasn't having any of it, so she tells Ji-hoon to leave if he's done eating, and that's how his experience at the share house ended, and now is back into his micro-sized room. After some time, Ji-hoon is now starting his job as a lecturer. He steps into the room and introduces himself as he starts checking attendance, and soon notice a familiar name. Kim Bitna. It was the share housekeeper. Ji-hoon turns on his sussy mode for no reason and figured she should feel uneasy seeing him as her lecturer. He also noticed from her student ID that this is her second time taking this course. He figures she will soon be coming up to him to apologize for being a little cranky at him. Ji-hoon now feels extremely good with his imagination. Once the class was finished, Bitna was the last to leave. Ji-hoon was so ready for her to come and talk to him, but she just walked past him and went for the exit. Ji-hoon quickly tells her to wait up and grabbed her hands. She looked back, so he asked if she remembered him. She replies that she does since he's the lecturer just now. So Ji-hoon said he was talking about that they met at the share house. Bitna said he's the self-proclaimed cousin of Joo-hee and asked why'd he do that. Ji-hoon lost his words and out of nowhere said he just wants to tell her that he will give her good marks if she work hard. Bitna bows and leaves. Then Ji-hoon's phone rang and it was Woo Seo asking how his lecture went. He replies that it was all right, but Woo Seo knew that it was anything but all right, so he tells him to relax and come outside so they can celebrate his debut as an instructor. Woo Seo pulled up alongside two other beauties, and one of them was Joo-hee. All of them went to a club and celebrated Ji-hoon's debut as an instructor. Once Woo Seo left to dance, Joo-hee took a selfie with Ji-hoon, but noticed that he looks like he's not having fun, so she asks if he's all right. He explains that he's just tired because he didn't get a good night's sleep since people next door were loud. Joo-hee felt sorry for him and said he slept like a baby when he slept with her, so looks like he should put him to sleep every night. Then she gets closer and asks if they should live together. Ji-hoon got shy and spit his drink. Joo-hee laughs and said she was just joking, but she's sorry to hear that he's tired, so she slowly moves her hand to his thighs and asks if she should help him relax a little. And just like that, she starts attacking Ji-hoon's mouth. Should have been me, not him. But unlike the first time where Ji-hoon got destroyed, this time he was fighting her back. He pushes her towards the wall and strikes her down with his King Arthur sword. As they were going wild, Joo-hee asked if they should live together, and this time she's being serious. She thinks it would be fun. Although Ji-hoon knows these are just things people say when they are going freaky, he agrees. Once it was done, Ji-hoon questions if she will move in with him, so she said it's actually him who's moving into the share house with her. He later learned that the share house was for all genders, but that day the man who's living on the first floor was on a business trip, so there were only women in the house, and now there is also an empty room for a man. Joo-hee greets Ji-hoon at the front door and noticed that he's very stiff, and it was because he's going to be interviewed by Bitna. Ji-hoon took a seat. He starts to wonder if he's trying way too hard to live here, but remembering what Joo-hee told him about the price, it was too good of a deal to give up. He nervously glances at Joo-hee, so she gave him a wink to calm him down. Bitna takes a look at Ji-hoon's information and the interview starts. Bitna and the residents asked him various disorderly questions, and although he finds it a bit much, he could understand why, but thanks to Joo-hee's coaching beforehand, everything went well, and they seem to be happy with his answers. Subin speaks up and thinks she will be fine to live with him. Myung-ji also thinks he's legit, and she likes his personality. So Subin turns to Bitna and asks what she thinks. She pauses for a moment and lets Ji-hoon know that this be her last question, and that is if he's really Joo-hee's cousin. Both Ji-hoon and Joo-hee were not prepared for this, so Joo-hee steps in and asks why she's asking something so obvious, but Bitna was still hesitant. She thinks they are lying, so Ji-hoon reassures her that he's really her cousin. Eventually, Bitna believes them and allows Ji-hoon to live with them, so Myungji happily suggests they should throw a welcome party to celebrate. Although Ji-hoon feels a bit guilty for lying to Bitna, there was no turning back now. Dude's living the dream. That evening, Bitna shows off her cooking skills and made good-looking meals for everyone. Ji-hoon tears up feeling happy that now he can eat good food like this every day. Then suddenly Myungji suggests they should have alcohol for events like this and pulls up a bottle. Ju-hee was more than ready. This place was literally heaven on earth for Ji-hoon, but he soon noticed a gloomy atmosphere. Bitna was staring deep into his soul as she calls his name. He nervously replies, but she was actually just telling him that she can ask either her or Ju-hee if he's not sure about something, and suggests he get used to the house rules if he does not want to get kicked out. Ji-hoon was folding so hard right now, so Myung-ji cheers him up by filling up his glass, but as she was about to pour, her dual calcium bazookas suddenly crashed into our boy's shoulder. He blushes and looks at her, so she gave him a sussy wink. Now that the glasses are filled, the party begins. After a while, Myung-ji asks Ji-hoon if he's really not seeing anyone. He chuckles and replies that he isn't, so she asks if he likes her and if she's too old for him. Ji-hoon quickly replies that she isn't old at all, but the conversation stopped when Bitna steps in and prevents him from getting his missile devoured. Myung-ji lets Bitna know that she's being serious and wonders if she's interfering because she's jealous. Bitna coldly replies that she will never fall for a guy him. Ji-hoon asks what she meant, so she explained that she's not into guys who use their status that isn't even impressive to pick up women. That's when Ji-hoon remembered what he said to her in the lecture room, and now Myung-ji is also misunderstanding him. Ji-hoon was cooked, but as he was about to clear his name. Bitna and Subin excuses themselves. Once they went up, Myung-ji asked what he did to Bitna while Ju-hee questions if he's also hit on Bitna. He sat down and explained what happened, and both of them went laughing, saying he deserved that. But Myung-ji reminds him to not overthink since he's not yet out of luck, so she gave him a bit of advice. After some time, Myung-ji excuses herself. Ji-hoon turned to Ju-hee and asks if they both should also get cleaned up, but she slammed the table and hopped on his lap. Ji-hoon knew things are about to go down and quickly tells her that this is definitely not the place, but she didn't care, because this was exactly why she asked him to live with her, and her demands is that there must not be a single spot in the house that is left clean. She real freaky. And before he even knew it, Ashoka's white lightsaber was already put into work. After some time, Ju-hee suggests they should speed things up before there are any witnesses, so our boy opened his ultimate and ended the game as soon as he could. Little did they know hiding from Myung-ji was not possible. The next morning, Ji-hoon felt so tired from last night, then he had to move stuff, and he also had lectures. After the lecture, his boss came and said they will be drinking tonight, so he better be there if he wants to go far in this school, since making points with the dean is very important. Ji-hoon went to grab lunch in the cafeteria and soon noticed Bitna sitting alone. He wonders if she would think that he's hitting on her if he goes over. Then he remembers what Myung-ji said, Bitna likes honesty. So he gathered all his confidence and walked over to Bitna. He said hi, and she replied coldly. He tells her that there's something she should know, but she didn't care. Ji-hoon was stunned with her response then. As she was about to get up and leave, he grabs her hand and said he's not interested in her. Ji-hoon explained what he meant, but it looks more like he's having a stroke. Eventually he explains that he didn't mean to hit on her, but he was just happy to see her again. Bitna was confused why he's excited to see a stranger like her. I bet we all know why. But anyways, our boy tells her that it's because she's memorable and he wanted to be close to her. Bitna asks why, so he said it's because she's pretty. Bitna was surprised with Ji-hoon's answer, so he tells her to chill since he's just being honest, and he just wants her friend. Eventually, Bitna tells him that she understands now and left. Later that night, Ji-hoon arrives at the place looking like Diddy party stuff. He walks in and was greeted with a staff who leads him to the professor's room. Once he arrived, the professors were having the best time of their life. He greeted them, and this 1 out of 10 looking professor comes up to tell him that the dean was waiting for him. Ji-hoon apologizes, saying he had an evening lecture, so the dean tells him he better set his priorities right, and now he will have a penalty drink. The dean sends one of the ladies towards Ji-hoon, but just as he was about to take a drink, the glances at the girl beside Ji-hoon, and just like that, she immediately unleashed her milky calcium bazookas out into the wild, while the dean poured the drink on it so our boy can take a sip. But it seems like to Ji-hoon this is the biggest turn-off ever. Dude had no idea what we all would do to be in his position. Anyways, he nervously asks if he could drink from a glass instead, and just like that, The dean crashes out so hard that the Baldy professor had to step in and offers to take the drink instead. But just when Baldy finished slurping the drink, the Dean Detroit smashed his head and tells him to go out and get the madam, while also criticizing the girl to be so mid that Ji-hoon refuses to take a drink from him. Ji-hoon tries to calm the dean down, but it does not seem to work. Once the madam came, the dean scolds her for not giving Ji-hoon her ace. She replies that it's strange, because the girl earlier was their best. She gets closer to Ji-hoon, and that's when he realizes that the madam is actually Myung-ji. Both of them were stunned to see each other, but Myung-ji's surprised face turned into a sussy smile in split second. The dean asks what she's going to do about this, so she said as an apology, she'll make up for it and pour a drink on herself. She instantly pushes Ji-hoon towards the table and climbs on top of him. Ji-hoon tried to resist, but Myung-ji was at the point of no return, and she's got all the advantage over him. She soon reveals her hidden mommy cow milkers for the world and starts pouring the drink at herself for Ji-hoon. Once it was done, the dean compliments Myung-ji and thanked Ji-hoon for giving them a highlight. Meanwhile, our boy is still processing what happened, so the professors went on ahead. Myung-ji comes over and asks Ji-hoon how he's feeling. He explained that he's just surprised, so she asks if he's surprised because this is her job. He denies, but before he gets to explain, she cuts him off and asks if her thing was pretty. He was confused what she meant, so she spread her personal yogurt dungeon out like wildfire and showed it to him again. Ji-hoon quickly turns away, but the further he goes, the closer she gets to him, so eventually he tells her that it looks great. Myung-ji chuckles and asks if he does not like places like this because it seems like he's not having fun at all. Then she reaches her hand towards his quads and questions if he's shy, then suddenly went for our dude's missile and said from the looks of it that doesn't seem like the case. Ji-hoon tells her to wait, but before bro even knew it, his missile was already locked in, and once Myung-ji saw it with her own eyes, she understood why Ju-hee liked it so much. Ji-hoon was shocked that she knows about him, and Ju-hee, so Myung-ji lets him know that she saw everything because they were not even trying to hide it. Ji-hoon tells her to chill because there's actually a story behind it, but she cuts him off and said she's not planning to disclose it to others if he cooperates with her. He was confused what she meant, so she said he just needs to keep still and let her cook, and just like that, King Arthur's sword was halfway back into the stone. Once Myung-ji successfully launched the rocket from Space X, she lets Ji-hoon know that the share house is going to be more fun all thanks to him. That night our boy went home dry as a desert. He looks back and knew he would get in trouble if he gets caught, and he does not want that because things with Bitna are just starting to get better. Suddenly it starts raining, and while he was running he suddenly noticed Bitna. He was confused what she's doing here and out of nowhere thought she was coming to pick him up, but once he ran up to her, she walked past him and went straight towards the dude behind him instead. Ji-hoon wonders who's the guy and why she's picking him up. Aside from that, they also seem to be more than friends. Ji-hoon starts making noise to get their attention. Bitna turns around and questions what he's doing there. Hyun-tae asks how she knows Ji-hoon, so she explained that he's a new resident. Hyun-tae was glad that there's another man in the house, and both of them introduced themselves. Then Ji-hoon asks for one umbrella, but when he tried to open it up, it seems to be stuck. He tries harder and eventually broke it. Hyun-tae lets Ji-hoon know that he can share the umbrella with Bitna, but he denies the offer and ran home alone, confusing the both of them. Back at home, Ju-hee tells Ji-hoon to quickly take a shower before he catches a cold. While he's showering, he wonders why Bitna was so friendly with Hyun-tae. From what he overheard, Hyun-tae works for a large company, and he's good-looking. Dude's basically the upgrade from Ji-hoon. The best part is he's not broke. Right now he hopes that Hyun-tae's missile would only be 3 centimeters. My boy Hyun-tae is getting cooked for no reason. After Ji-hoon was done, he went next to Ju-hee and asked if others had came home. She replies that there's just the both of them now and questions if he's waiting for someone. He panicked and said he was just curious because he ran into Hyun-tae and Bitna a while ago, but they haven't returned yet. That reminds Ju-hee that Hyun-tae will be returning today, but since they suddenly disappear, she figures it must be for a good reason. At this point, my boy Ji-hoon isn't even trying to keep it low-key that he's interested in Bitna, and further ask what she meant. Ju-hee is very confused why he's questioned so much, so she asks if he likes Bitna by any chance. Ji-hoon starts shaking, but he denies and said he's just worried. Eventually, Ju-hee believes him. Then she slowly brings her feet towards his pump-action yogurt launcher and asked where should he launched his weapon at her this time, since there's no one's home. Why isn't this me? I mean, look at those feet. But just when Ju-hee was about to step up her game, This idiot decides to crash out and rushes to his room saying he's tired, leaving Joo-hee stunned. After some time, Bitna and Hyuntae finally returned home. However, Ji-hoon was still awake and heard that they took some time because they were just talking. He knew it was Cap, but figures he should just go to sleep. But he suddenly woke up in panic after dreaming that Hyuntae had already hit it. Right now, Ji-hoon was very confused. Why'd he dream of something like that? Feeling thirsty, he gets up and went to the fridge, but as he was about to take a yogurt, Soo-bin comes at him from the back and said that it's hers. Ji-hoon quickly turned to her, but his focus all went towards her mommy milkers, making Soo-bin embarrassed. Can't blame him for this. He quickly apologizes, but it was too late. The shame was too much for her that she had to take a U-turn and went back to her room. The next morning at the university, Ji-hoon felt so tired after having a hard time sleeping. That's because every time he closes his eyes, he either thinks about Soo-bin in her thin tank top or Hyuntae clapping Bitna. He starts getting mad at himself, wondering why he's being a gooner all of a sudden. Then Bitna comes into the room and asks the staff to be put into a class that is already full. The lady tells her that it's not possible, so Bitna tells her that it's mandatory, and if she does not take it, she will not be able to graduate. The lady asked for her ID and learns that she failed the class before. Aside from that, adding her into the class now is just not possible. Bitna begs for her to help, but the staff still refuses. Then out of nowhere, our boy Ji-hoon slams the table and tells the staff that she's being too harsh. After talking to the staff for a bit, Ji-hoon realizes he knows the professor teaching the course, so he grabs Bitna's hand and brought her to the professor's office. Eventually, the professor allowed Bitna into the class. Bitna thanked Ji-hoon and admitted that she might have misunderstood him before. She added that she now understood his sincerity and believed he wasn't actually hitting on her. With that cleared up, she asked if he wanted to grab something to eat, but Baldy Professor came out of nowhere asking for Ji-hoon, claiming that it's urgent. Bitna lets him know they can go another time, and they part ways. Ji-hoon questions what's the matter, so the professor hands him the phone, and it was a picture of a girl slightly revealing her calcium jugs. Ji-hoon thought he was already a down bad gooner, but seeing this guy made him realize that there's a bigger gooner than him in this university. Suddenly, Ji-hoon noticed something. He took the phone to get a closer look. The mole on the girl's calcium looked so familiar to him. That's when he thought that this milkers looks like it belonged to Soo-bin. He tries to think that it can't be. Besides, there are probably a lot of people with moles anyway. Back at home, he found Soo-bin sitting on the dining table studying. Ji-hoon asks where the others went, so she said everyone will be coming home late today. Ji-hoon took a seat at the table and had some food, but focusing on the food was the hardest thing ever as he finds himself always locked in on Soo-bin's boing-boing. Eventually, Soo-bin notices him and asks what he wants. Sweating like he just ran a marathon, he replies that he was just worried he might be interfering with her studies, so she tells him that it's fine as she think of it as white noise. Ji-hoon was relieved. He then questions if she's studying language and literature. She replies that she is, but it's not going so well. Being a teacher himself, he offers to help her. He took one look and explained it to Soo-bin in a simplified version. Soo-bin didn't know he was locked in and said she believes that he's a professor now. Soo-bin asked him to solve the next question and explained it to her. But suddenly his focus shifted to the mole or her calcium jugs again as he wonders if she really got it. He gets even closer this time and tried to take a look. Just when he was about to discover the truth behind these ultra-large dual mountains, Joo-hee unexpected bashed into the door. Seeing Ji-hoon and Soo-bin together, she immediately asked what they are doing, so Soo-bin tells her she's just studying. Joo-hee comes from behind and gives her a hug, saying that she's so proud of her. Soo-bin tells her to chill out. Then suddenly she squeezed her boing-boing and asks if these mountains are growing even larger. Soo-bin slams the table and said she's distracting her studies, so she will be going to the study room instead. Joo-hee turns to Ji-hoon and said she decides to come home early today so she can put his lightsaber into work. Ji-hoon nervously questions if this is the right place to do it, so she said it's fine since there are only two of them, and like usual, she didn't wait long before she gets the lightsaber into action. Outside the house, Soo-bin realized she forgot her phone in the dining table. She walks back in and encountered Joo-hee and Ji-hoon on a mission to launch the rocket to the moon. Back at the couple, Ji-hoon wonders why Joo-hee is being so enthusiastic today, so she said maybe she's at her peak performance today and quickly jumps him. Meanwhile, Soo-bin is in the corner, trying to peek while she does her own thing. She was confused why cousins are doing something like that. Maybe they aren't Japanese. But whatever it is, she finds it very difficult to not take a peek. and before she knew it, she's already surrounded by her own Pacific Ocean. Eventually, both parties went wilder and finished their mission. Joo-hee suggests they should change location, like going into Soo-bin's room instead, saying it would be fun. But right now she's tired, so she will be going to bed. Suddenly they hear a sound, then Soo-bin flops out of the corner saying she forgot her phone. Joo-hee was shaking so much as she asked if she saw anything, but she acts confused. As Joo-hee was about to reveal the truth, Ji-hoon taps her and gave her the signals that she shouldn't tell her, so Joo-hee switched up and asked if she studied everything yet. Soo-bin replies that she isn't done. Then she awkwardly grabbed her phone and rushed out the house. Back in Ji-hoon's bedroom, he was so tired, but he was still worried if Soo-bin saw anything. He grabbed his phone and figures, whatever happens, happens. Suddenly, he received a notification from the baldy professor who sends him a Gunner link. Ji-hoon taps it, and it was a live stream. Ji-hoon couldn't believe how down bad that dude is. He figures he should click off, but the stream was so active, so he decides to spend a few more moments watching. And before he knew it, he was already a full-time Gunner. Things were getting serious, but then the book on the girl's stream caught his eye. It was the same book he explained to Soo-bin earlier.